Revolutionary talk for revolutionary times. Promoting peace, liberty, and prosperity around the clock. LibertyTalk.fm.
Welcome to Living the Solution with Dr. Elaina George. Today I have one of my favorite guests to give us an update on everything else that they're trying to do to us. We're going to speak with our favorite guest, Miss Lynne Taylor, the Common Core Diva. And we're going to speak about a topic that I'm not sure people know about, but it's a hot topic right now. And that's the data centers. And ultimately, Lynn, I'm not sure that people understand what the possible role of these data centers could play. How do you think they're going to, play out in society? What's their purpose?
Okay. Let me start off with a state definition. And by state, I mean, you need to look at your state. Here in North Carolina, this is how they define a data center. A facility that provides infrastructure for hosting or data processing services and is concurrently maintainable. The power and cooling systems serving the computer equipment must include redundant capacity components and multiple distribution paths. Although the facility must have multiple distribution paths serving the computer equipment, a single distribution path may serve the computer equipment at any one time. That's a lot of words for a lot of shuck and jive. And what I mean by that is if you look at the boom of data centers, first of all, is attached to nothing but artificial intelligence. They sell it as, this is going to be a better way for us to communicate with healthcare patients, or this is going to be a better way for us to manage all your city's data in one place, or this is how we're going to help your schools, or this is how we're going to help your economy. And what we're finding, in other states is that you've got either city practicing eminent domain, or you have corporations coming in and snapping up not just farmland, but people's homes. There's a town out in Oregon, I believe it's called Hillsboro or Hillsdale. I can't remember. But anyway, it's been well documented that the entire town between the city and whatever data center Mongol it is, they have pretty much wiped out the entire population. The homes are still there. They might be in either torn down or disarray, but they force the citizens to go back and keep up the yard so that if you and I go through the city, we think it's a well-maintained city. And what we're finding is that it's taking natural resources away from people. It's also discouraging farmland from being used for crops and livestock and turned into wastelands that are full of either pollutants that can cause you diseases and illnesses, or it could cause terrible erosion problems because, of course, they have to go in and knock down all the trees, which affects your air quality. So while they're telling you this is supposed to be a really great, wonderful thing, and yes, that, we have to have all this data, they're not really, those who are behind this are not really explaining the damages to our world and to Mother Nature, but to our own bodies.
So I can see if you extrapolate this out, if we're getting rid of farmland, down the road, that's going to affect how much food we have, cost, just not being able to actually get food from our own country. It's going to cost us a heck of a lot more if we can import enough to actually feed our citizens.
Right. And, that goes along with the status quo, the sustainable development goals, because if you look at number 2, it's zero hunger. Well, this plays into it, not from I'm going to have enough for you to eat off the land, but you're going to have to eat whatever is provided for you by someone other than your own hands. And, this is not about political stance. This is about economic and skewing the economy to fit those who are in control and make those who are like you and I subservient to those who are in control.
So this is a lot of power. What regulations are there in place to protect people or the average citizen?
Well, right now you have the Constitution. Right now, that would be at the federal level. You also have your state constitution, but you need to be very, very careful, because what I found here in North Carolina was that to kowtow to this agenda, the leaders in our state capital, which is Raleigh, took the general statutes and amended them so that data centers could be included in the infrastructure when they had never been included before. And with that, it opened Pandora's box for things like zoning. So now we have to take land that was farmland, which is agricultural zoning, and you have to turn it into what's known as industrial zoning. And that's a huge difference. Then you have the states, and this will also be at the federal level. We're coming in and we're changing the IRS tax codes, or we're changing the state tax codes, so that, these businesses who are bringing in these data centers, they're getting three or more different types of tax incentives to bring these behemoth institutions into your area. And you, the citizen, are getting zero tax breaks. In fact, it has been documented, I think it is in Texas, one of the data centers was put in a place where they were drought stricken, and it sucked up all the water. And so the citizens were told, okay, well, the data center needs all the water, and tough patooties, you're going to have to do without. Now, think about this from a healthcare standards. If you don't have fresh, clean water, you cannot brush your teeth. You cannot get the liquid that your body needs, that comes from Mother Earth. And you cannot flush the toilet, take a shower.
This doesn't make any sense.
No, it really doesn't. But again, this is all about, it's going to boost the economy. It's going to boost the economy.
I don't see how it could when it's one center gathering information. How many people, I don't know if you can answer this, but how many jobs are associated with this? I would think this is all computer driven.
Well, here's the thing. The sales pitch for the one that's being put in my backyard, if they're going to go through with it, will tell you, we're going to bring in 200 jobs. And I'm sitting here thinking, okay, well, if you look at the numbers that are being skewed now for the number of people who are employed versus unemployed, that's a whole nother conversation, Dr. Elaina, because, I proved this years ago. When you have the Department of Labor pointing you to the wrong statistics, away from the true statistics that you need, what is everyone going to believe? They're going to believe, unemployment's off the charts, so we've got to skew education so that we can meet all this workforce needs. Well, what happens is, and I found this on Business Investors Weekly, I believe it is, and I think this was back in June when I was first showing this research. It was saying that the jobs that are associated with these data centers need such specialized people that 9 times out of 10, they're going to bring their own people. They're not going to be hiring. So those supposed 200 jobs in my area alone, it's going to be interesting to see how many are truly of that 200 available to local people, and how many are farmed in from the company that's building this blasted thing. Same thing that goes in. Oh, you're thinking, well, good. There's construction crews around here that you could use. Well, guess what? One of the first things that's done to usher these in pretty much under the people's noses is that once the data center company decides, this is the land we want, they get a contractor. And they go ahead and they get that contractor hired. Well, that contractor 9 times out of 10, again, may or may not be local. You have to really do your homework. So the way the regulations are working, and this is a big call out to people for citizen action here. So I'm going to jump ahead to the solutions question and answer one of them right here. The second you don't show up for city meetings, I don't care how boring and dull you think they are, you're going to miss when these kinds of things are ushered in, because it's a lot of these conversations do happen in closed session meetings. I'm not going to argue that. They absolutely are, because we've got a timeline here in our area that this particular data center has been 2 years in the making. Now, a lot of the meetings the public was excluded from, but the second that the public got wind of it, it's almost too late at that point because you've had public-private partnerships come in. You've had contracts that have already been drawn up. Whether they've been signed or not, I don't know. The only thing that is holding ours up right now is that the city has not signed off on the industrial zoning. Now, the citizens are really making a lot of noise. We've got a wonderful grassroots group here. It's called No to Mooresville Technical Park. I think they have a website, and let me see what that website is. Hang on. Okay, it's www.nodatacentermooresville, mooresvillenc.com. And if you go to their website, Dr. Elaina, you're going to see not only information from our area, but you're going to see contributing researchers like myself who've donated their time, energy, and effort to supply this particular grassroots effort with scenarios and events and things that are happening all across the nation that are affecting zoning. You've got a whole tab that's full of cities who have fought back and won against these data centers. And I'm really hoping that ours can be added to that list. But you've also got facts and figures about how much infrastructure this is going to bring in, how much industrial waste this is going to create, which will junk up your landfills, how much natural resources will be depleted, what this is going to do to the environment as far as the air quality, but also our wildlife. This also will go into property values and property taxes. So you can't just take one angle of this and say, oh, well, this is the good, this is the bad.
So it's kind of maddening that this is going on. So from the standpoint of where are the environmentalists? I mean, you would figure that they would be all over this since water resources and land resources are being absolutely possibly devastated, never to return while they build these things.
Well, one of the arguments is, oh, well, we can recycle some of the water. Did you catch that?
Yes.
Some of the water?
Yeah.
Yeah. 95% of the water will be forever gone. And, you know, this is absolutely atrocious. It absolutely is. Now, you need to look at your economic development partnerships in your area because they will be in on this as well. Let's see here. A 2023 quarter four report from the Economic Development Partnership for North Carolina says in quarter four 2023, North Carolina's economic development community reported 41 economic development projects across the state. Reported projects contributed to a total of 5,580 announced jobs and $9.9 billion in investment. Now, the shocker among these projects is that data center projects accounted for the largest percentages of the total announced investment. And so in one of my articles, I did write that the people who are concerned about carbon footprints, they're even raising their heads about what in the world is going on. And if you look at the nation, the state of Virginia right now, Dr. Elaina, has the most data centers, topping out at 500.
Whoa.
California is second with 300. Texas is third with 250. Ohio comes in with 150. And Indiana rounds out the top 5 states with 147. Now, you look at each of these states, you're looking at a big swath of history, farmlands of all different kinds. In California, of course, we know we have livestock. We also have vineyards out there. Virginia, you have, cows and other things. You also have historical monuments in historical lands. And if you look from a federal level, the executive order on advancing artificial intelligence, one of the caveats was federal lands for data centers and federal bucks for data centers, as well as the energy sources that go with them that are being looked at again, such as nuclear energy. I mean, Microsoft, I think it's either Microsoft or Amazon, is rebooting 3 Mile Island.
What?
Now, if you remember, it was one reactor and supposed meltdown. But what happened was that some of the chemicals leaked out into the air, made people ill. Well, what researchers are finding in California, where they have like 300 of these, you've got researchers from 2 universities who said, wait a minute, you've got diesel generators out there, and you've got diesel machines that are running these computer data centers. Well, they give off diesel exhaust. They also give off nitrous oxide. Well, if you look at the contributing factors for some of our health and lung diseases, ding, 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 you have diesel and nitrous oxide. Now, these particular people in this study have found that the negative impact in just the air quality is going to give about 600,000 extra cases of asthma, with 1,300 of those people dying a premature death from asthma due to healthcare complications from cruddy air given off of data centers. We also know that these 2 particular components also contribute to cancer. Now, here's the kicker. In my area, in the 28115 and 28117 zip code, our state Department of Health and Human Services has already done a documented study where they found that the increase in thyroid cancer alone among our young people is off the charts. But yet we're going to open up Pandora's box and put a data center in an area that's already well documented for all types of cancers. And we're going to sit here and wonder, well, why did Johnny and Susie, or maybe Johnny and Susie's mom or dad or grandma or grandpa, suddenly come up with something they didn't have? Memphis, Tennessee is another good example of this. You've got people who now have been diagnosed with COPD without a family history of it. Because why? A data center is not too far from their area. And what California is finding out is that 9 times out of 10, these data centers in more urbanish areas pick on the low income minority neighborhoods. Now, here where I live, it's not low income minority. It's just wide open farmland.
This is really tragic. I mean, I can't even imagine, obviously, follow the money, but the people who are in these state houses who are making these deals. This reminds me of things, where you have these inside deals that benefit the corporatists and work against the people in the community. But we're talking about really bad health issues. Let's take our first break, because I want to go over that in more detail. So we'll take our first break and come back. You're living in the solution. Welcome back to Living the Solution. We're speaking with Miss Lynne Taylor. And before the break, you were giving us an awesome synopsis and the health effects of these data centers. I really didn't know that it could affect really generations, whoever gets exposed to this. And I would think it affects people down the river, right? So let's say you have a data center up the river and there's some sort of waste or spill. That's going to affect everywhere that water flows, right? They have to be near water sources, or no?
If they're not near a water source, they're going to use the existing infrastructure's water system. And what we need to understand, let me go back to the healthcare cost, because, we were talking before the break about the ailments that can crop up. But the healthcare cost burden is expected to top $20 billion with a B dollars by 2030, just in this sort of issue. And like I said, in California, they're finding out that, wow, this is really going to increase energy. Now, here's the thing. Duke Energy is the largest supplier here in North Carolina. Now, they've already announced that as of October 1st, our consumer rates are going up. They are projected to make billions of dollars off of the data centers. They've already contracted with the data center that wants to come into my area. And then, Duke University, lo and behold, comes out with this study from last year that says, wait a minute, time out. Data centers can exist off of the existing electricity grid if we plan smart and we are very efficient about our use. Now, you can find the study. I can make sure that everybody gets the links to everything that I'm talking about. But it's really fascinating because in the study, it will tell you, and I'm going to read from the conclusion. The study highlights extensive potential for levering large load flexibility to address the challenges posed by rapid load growth in the United States power system. So by estimating the curtailment-enabled headroom across balancing authorities, the analysis demonstrates that existing system capacity, initially designed to accommodate extreme swings of peak demand, could accommodate significant new load additions with relatively modest curtailment. Now, that would save everyone tons of money, tons of pain and agony. But guess what? Do you think that the powers that be want that study to surface? Do you think the data company that is trying so hard to twist everybody's arm to put one in where it doesn't belong is really going to say, hey, yeah, let's do that? No, they're going to go, oh, no, we need to come in and we need to bring in this kind of energy and that kind of energy. And we need to overload the power grid so you can't have energy. And we need to make sure that we put in nuclear when, nuclear may be a good thing. It may not. There's not enough data yet to find out. Is this going to be a smart and great solution? But we've already got a solution. But how many people are going to know about it?
Well, my question is the power grid needs to be the underpinning of this, right? And the power grid it's not very hardy at this point. I mean, if it's too hot, there's brownouts, there's blackouts. Is this going to put stress on an already stressed system? And are the people going to end up getting their power pulled to keep these data centers off?
Well, that's an excellent way to put it because I think exactly so. It's just like the water. That reminds me, look at your water company. If you pay a water bill to a government or to a company, that means that your water is being bought and sold. What kind of contingency plan does your local area have when it comes to water supply? Because I'm going to tell you what, here where I live, there is it's called the Iredell Water Corporation. This is the conservation policy that has been drafted and put in place since 2020. And what it goes in to tell you in the many pages is that, okay, they get to decide when it's time to tell everyone, okay, we need to slow down on the water usage. But here's the thing. If it happens on a natural basis due to drought, like it did in Texas, or it happens to be, dead of summer and that sort of thing. And you have the power company telling you, oh, well, you need to cut back on your electricity, but your water is tied to your electricity. You're kind of in a bad place. But, the conservation methods start off with, well, okay, yeah, we're going through a tough time. So you need to limit, a little bit of water here. Maybe don't water your lawn so much, and then as you go on, and things get worse and worse in this scenario, pretty soon you're facing fines and punishment, maybe even charges for water usage. So that's just under a natural occurrence. What happens when it's the data center that sucked it all dry? Are we still going to be under these type of parameters? If you look at the plan, that's what it sure looks like. So you have to ask yourself questions, and then you have to go in and ask those people who are in charge, what are we going to do? How is this going to impact us? What has to change so that the data center can, run if it needs to run, and I can still have my water? Because here's the thing, the companies that are behind these data centers, whether it's in setting it up or using it as services for data collection, they've got the bucks. They could buy their own blasted water and their own electricity. But no, they want to mooch off of us to take away from us. And again, what is this going to do to the existing infrastructures? The one here in where I live in Mooresville, we still have lead pipes under the streets that are so outdated they're caving in, but yet we can bring this in and oh, no problem.
I don't know about that. I mean, that would be a question for real.
But this, for every aspect of this, Dr. Elaina, you have a million more questions that no one wants to talk about and no one wants to answer. And, that brings me to another thing. Look at your state. Does your state participate in what's known as a farmland preservation program? Because North Carolina has one in all 100 counties, I believe. And what you need to know about those is that you have specific maps that you can print out from your state on these preservation zones. And the express purpose is to save land for farming so we can grow crops and have animals so that they can graze and do what they need to do so that we can also have food. They also have buffer zones around these particular farmland preservation zones. The data center that's being proposed is in one of the buffer zones in our county. And no one wants to talk about how this is violating a state statute.
Are there any of the House representatives in your state advocating for the people?
Not that I am aware of. And what is going on here is we have such a mighty bunch of citizens who banded together that they are finding themselves almost overwhelmed because there are so many angles to this and there's so much information sharing that when people are coming to ask for interviews and things like that, it's like, wait a minute, we've got to focus on just this one set. But as I said earlier, you focus on that one set of issues, 5 more are connected to it. This was done on purpose to frustrate people and taxpayers. This was done on purpose so that we could look at one area and then the other 5 areas we're not looking at is where they're messing with. This is an absolute affront on life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Wow. On that note, let's take our second break and think about that. You're living in the solution. Welcome back to Living the Solution. We're speaking with the Common Core Diva, Miss Lynne Taylor. And Lynne is giving us a preview of what can happen throughout the country. Now, you mentioned a few states. Do you have any idea how many of these data centers? I mean, I would think it's going to be in all 50 states, maybe. I mean, or do they?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, there will be multiple data centers in every state. And I know Georgia, let's see, right outside of Atlanta, there is a metadata center, and the couple who was featured on YouTube, they live 400 yards away from the data center, and their well water has become contaminated. The dust alone from the construction has caused healthcare problems. So much for peace and quiet, huh?
And these are really large plants, aren't they? They're not small.
Oh, here's the thing. The hype will tell you, oh, we only need 10 acres. Then tell me why in the world we have 30, 40, 100, 300, 400 acres at a pop. If you look at some of the websites that keep up with farmland that's lost, okay, it's absolutely off the charts. I'm trying to find out where that particular article is that I just wrote. Okay, here we go. Hang on just a second. Sorry, I've got so many papers in front of me. I'm literally scrambling. Okay, so I've got a new article that'll be coming out for American Policy Center, and it's going to be called Monster Moves for Data Centers. And one of the things that it talks about is the massive amounts of farmland that have been lost. Okay, anyway, let's see here. Let me get back on track. I'm sorry. Farm Daily reported the difference in the number of acres of farmland, including pastures, between 1997 and 2022. And in the U.S. alone, 75 million acres less. So that's where we need to look at those farmland preservation programs. Okay. As far as globally, oh my goodness, 23 to 24 million acres of farmland will need to be added in the next 5 years just to meet the global food demand. Well, how in the world can you do that if you're taking all the farmland as it is? Well, your question is you hear about all these people who are coming up with ways to grow food indoors without dirt. There you go.
So hydroponics and things like that.
Yep. Or lab grown proteins. Oh, no, thank you.
I mean, they're trying to push everybody into that, and there'll be the excuse that in order to feed people, we have to.
Absolutely. Well, now what I want folks to look for, you were talking about the legal framework and how your city or your state is ushering this in. If you look at the accelerating federal permitting of data center infrastructure, this was connected to Trump's recent AI executive order. You're going to see that in that action plan, they're going to find ways to come up with different names for data centers so that it can be put on the books, like covered component projects. This is from the Secretary of Defense. You're also going to see the Secretary of Interior, Commerce, and Energy, that they will say the project sponsor has committed X number of dollars in capital expenditures. There's a projected load, so on and so forth. There's a national security benefit, blah, 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 blah. So they're going to spin it any way they can to affect the permitting, which goes into the zoning. It'll go into using federal land. It will also go into fast tracking projects, all the ways that things can be danced around the National Environmental Policy Act, as well as, here we have all these other sections of laws and caveats and things like that. So you really are going to almost have to have a legal degree to figure out how they're doing this behind your back and in front of your face.
I mean, with your group there in North Carolina, are there any legal, liaisons to try to, from a legal standpoint, fight this?
I know that they have put together an awful lot of information on their website, and I think that may be addressed on the website, but it is certainly something that, you can get in contact with the website, and I'm sure they'll be able to answer, because if they don't have the answer, what I've noticed is they're really good about pointing you to someone or some resource that does have an answer.
Gotcha. Now, still a little bit gray area for me is who owns these data centers? Are these international companies coming in? Is it the same group that's piggybacking on all over the country? Or every state just has a different public-private partnership?
Right. Well, thank you for asking. You've got your big giants like Meta and Amazon and Google. Then you've got BlackRock or Blackstone. I can't remember. I think it's BlackRock. Anyway, you've got all kinds of private investment companies. But yes, these are global as well as American companies. And then the one that's here that goes around the country building data centers also has some more in the works besides the one that's in my backyard. That's called Tract. TRACT. And if you look at the first article I did for the American Policy Center, I went into how they are using another name as a capital investment group to come in and help set up data centers. So it's not just the data company like Google or Amazon. You have to look at the capital investments, the capital partners, those economic development partnerships that your state has. And here's the thing, the economic development partnership that North Carolina belongs to is part of a regional hub that is housed in Atlanta. So Atlanta has this hub for not just North Carolina, but all of Georgia and several other states. And these hubs are all around the nation.
And these hubs capture, I guess, data from various parts of the country. I know we're talking data. Are we talking about? We're talking about all healthcare data. Are we talking about economic, banking? What are we talking about?
You are talking about any sort of data that you can possibly think about. Okay. Healthcare, education, economic, job related, finance. I don't know all the types of data that we have, Dr. Elaina, because there's so much. I know we have biometric data. I know we have analytical data. We have algorithms. But all of this is what is being housed. And so I'm going to make a word picture for folks here. All right. The data centers are the brand new shiny car you thought you always wanted. The energy that runs this bright, shiny new, brand new car is the new oil that you're going to need. The data on people is the gold that bought the new car. And then the land is the bridge for the car to drive over.
It's pretty integrated, isn't it?
Yes. But that's on purpose. Remember, that is on purpose. This has no regard for citizens, for the planet, for the pets. No one's talking about, oh, is this going to be a planned takeover, or is this unintended consequences we're talking about? Because remember, whoever's spinning this is going to make the opposition look like, well, you've got that little tinfoil hat on just a little too tight, dear. Oh, what do you mean unintended consequence? Oh, no, we would never do that. Because, supposedly if you look at Tract, they're going to tell you, oh, well, we've planned to help save the environment. Yeah, how? How are you going to do that when you go down and you knock down every tree that might hold a bird's nest, or every bit of grass that might feed a deer? And, I understand people may not appreciate nature, but there's a reason why God made the ecosystem the way he did. And it was also interconnected and finely tuned so that animals could live and people could live in harmony. And you go and you mess that up, you are talking phenomenal damage that will last for generations.
And once it happens, it's going to be very difficult to pull it back. That's hard.
Yeah.
There's no thought about consequences. It's just myopic, and somebody's going to make a ton of money. And as usual, they're not going to have any kind of liability, it sounds like, after these fallout, economic health happen. So,
and don't even think about what happens if there's a fire, or if there's a meltdown, or if there's some sort of catastrophe that happens. Because trust me, those who are making these plans for data centers, they've already talked about it. They've already said, oh yeah, you need a catastrophe plan in place, and you're going to need specialized fire departments, and you're going to need specialized healthcare systems. Well, guess what? When we have governments that don't have enough employees to staff a fire department, or if you're in a rural enough area that you don't even have a fire station or a healthcare center that can handle the specialized problems that come out of this, how in the world are you going to be able to sustain a data center? What is it going? It's going to wreck the economy. It absolutely will. That doesn't even count the cost of, okay, if there is a catastrophe at a data center, how many dollars a day is the data center going to lose? It's in the thousands to millions. And who's going to have to recoup that cost? Is that going to be passed off to the taxpayers? Because I'm going to tell you what, here in North Carolina, when we were opposed to the I-77 toll lane, because we knew if you were smart about it and you did the study that the citizens did, which was, okay, if you widen the road, not only do you save money, you don't put a burden on the taxpayers. But no, that didn't happen because the politicians and the corporations who had already agreed to do this knew that they were going to make hand over fist. And so a quota was inserted in that particular project that the toll lanes would pay for X number amount of tax dollars. And if the goal wasn't met, the taxpayers of my county and the other county that it serves would have to pay the difference. We got no vote on that, Dr. Elaina. We got no say. And when we did say we didn't want it, it happened anyway. So is a similar setup going to happen with this data center here? I mean, how much do you think you could take away from people and it's okay?
It's really a travesty. On that note, let's take our last break and come back. You're living in the solution. Welcome back to Living the Solution. We're speaking with the Common Core Diva. And one of the things that you just said, Lynn, is these shoving off the cost and the responsibility onto the citizens who had no say. I mean, this is not how any government should be run. And it seems like it's a cookie cutter template that's gone on. Just, repeat, rinse and repeat over and over again. I mean, there's so many people that should be outraged. And I actually have a quick question about the economic zones, which have been talked about as ways to help working class communities bring in business and jobs. Are they using this as some sort of Trojan horse, or they're saying this is an economic zone, having these data centers come in?
Well, here's the thing. In the states, you have what's known as prosperity zones. You and I have talked about that before, especially connected to education, because it's going to streamline how Johnny and Susie are educated to fill the work that's needed in the prosperity zone. You also have some states that will call them opportunity zones. And supposedly, oh, yes, this company coming in is going to be able to help boom the economy or prosper the economy. It's going to have so many more opportunities. And what we've seen is it's a false pretense. It absolutely is, because what it promises is not what it delivers. And I don't know how many people across your audience are going to be able to identify this, but it's really setting up the haves and the have-nots. And, I did an interview out of California yesterday on this same topic. And, the guy asked me, so look, your forte is education. How in the heck did you get into data centers? Well, what caught my eye was the fact that this particular company said, oh, we're going to be able to pour so much money into your local education system. And one of the people who spoke up in opposition about this gave a great illustration and said, let's say that the money that this data center was able to contribute was $5 towards local education. Well, that doesn't sound like much. But when you get down to the brass tacks and you look at where all the money goes before it ever hits the school, guess how much the school actually gets? It was less than half a cent. But, oh no, that's not the spin job. The spin job was, oh no, your school's going to be able to get lots of money. Honey, we have seen this happen so many times. And I want to read from Black's Law, which is used as a authoritative weapon in citizen action and in legal courtrooms across the land. It says here, false pretenses can include false representation of existing facts or conditions by which a party obtains the property of another, false representation of an existing fact, whether by oral or written words, or conduct calculated to deceive, intended to deceive, and does in fact deceive.
People really have to stop trusting and start taking their power back. I don't think there's any other way to describe it.
Especially on this issue, because again, there's no one area about data centers that you could say, okay, this is it. This is it in a nutshell, because it's not in a nutshell. It is designed to be all encompassing so that control is so evident, and then we're at the mercy. We should never be at the mercy of any entity or any government. We absolutely should not. That was not how our nation was designed. That is not, again, pursuing life, liberty, and happiness.
Well, you just described how this is going to affect the health of the individual. And, the way the insurance company and the model works, I can't imagine that they're going to be pocketbooks open to pay for whatever disease process that pops up. They barely pay for things now. So is there any, or will there be any carve out, and you might not be able to answer this, but for people living near these data centers, what they do get ill, that they have a pot that they can access.
If it does exist, I'd love to see it, but I don't know that it'll happen. I mean, look at some of our previous forays into disastrous events across America, and the healthcare costs and the shirking of the duty of the company to go back in and to give compensation to the person or family who was harmed. I mean, that whole OxyContin trial in Boondoggle in West Virginia is proof of that.
That's true. And whatever money they did spend, it didn't put them out of business for sure.
No, it didn't, but it certainly didn't go back to the families who had lost loved ones due to addiction or health complications or anything like that. I wanted to point out, though, let's see here, one thing that is not being talked about, and this also impacts our health, is what's known as e-waste. Now, this is from an article that is called HiveNet. This is their website, and it's 10 eye-opening facts about data centers that will change. And it says here, this is number 2, e-waste is the unwanted offspring of data centers. And it says here that your electronics only have a lifespan of about 3 to 5 years. Now, that's a significant amount of electronical waste. It will end up in a landfill, which contributes to environmental pollution. It also gives up toxic chemicals such as mercury, cadmium, beryllium, and lead. It will contaminate soil, waterways, and air, not only polluting our environment, but negatively impacting human and marine life. So you were talking about the water in the river. There you go. So you have to be concerned about the landfill. Then there's not one thing that's really said about, noise pollution. You know how little it takes to ruin your hearing? Okay, data centers are like heavy metal concerts in a digital world. An average noise level cranking up to a deafening 92 decibels around server areas, and a hair-raising 96 decibels within the racks. Now that's in a concert.
That's going to be a lot.
A concert. Wait a minute. That's what they're saying can be damaging. I do believe heavy metal concerts can be also very loud, 80 decibels to 120. So these data centers will have noise levels in those ranges. How long do you think it is going to take a small child or an elderly person or anybody of any age to hear that constantly and not go, why in the world can I not hear anymore?
You can only be around about 90 decibels for a minute, and it will affect your hearing and damage.
Exactly, Dr. Elaina. So how anyone can stop and think, oh yeah, I want to live next to one of these, or oh yeah, I want this just down the road from me.
I wonder how far that sound travels. It's got to be. Go ahead. I think you just being adjacent, it's going to affect you.
Right. Well, I'm not sure how loud the sound will travel. I do know that the impact of the water, should they, say, okay, well, here we're going to cut off your water. I do believe, and it's in one of my articles, it was the amount of water for 757 Olympic-sized pools, or about 300,000 homes. Well, now, if you look at the makeup of your town, that could be an entire town or most of a town.
Wow. I mean, every state has a Department of Health, somebody who's running that. Maybe if you guys would get that information, then that's a health crisis potentially. And they maybe would have some sway with the potential risks to every citizen in the county, practically in the state, really.
Okay, cool. Thank you. It's just, I cannot, I am so flummoxed by all this, Dr. Elaina, because it's like, how much evidence do you need before you can finally say, you know what? Not in my backyard. Absolutely not in my backyard, not in your backyard, not in anybody's backyard. If they want to put in these data centers, why not use some of the old existing buildings like malls that have gone under? I can name 2 malls in my area. Lots of parking, lots of concrete, lots of space inside going to waste. Why can we not use some of the old warehouses for some of the companies who ship their jobs off to Timbuktu? Why do we have to go in and break new ground when there are already enough existing structures? It's kind of like the Duke University study. Was do you have to go and reinvent the wheel for a data center when we've already got something that would work if we just put our minds to it?
You're absolutely correct. And I was thinking that as you were telling the story. I mean, the commercial real estate market has been devastated. I would think it would be a fraction of the cost to take over some of these areas. Very little construction would have to be done, right? And you wouldn't be winning the food supply
Right.
from, which may never recur, may never come back.
I wish I understood the thinking, but when you have companies that are frothing at the mouth, literally, to come in and just do nothing but make money, and damn the consequences and damn the people, I don't know what to say.
Well, thank you for getting it out there, because it's a black hole. I don't think people know anything about it. They just think about how we've been told it's going to be a boon to the economy and more jobs, and data is the key. That's the new currency, really. It's about data.
Well, of course, because you are the gold. You are absolutely the gold. And, we've talked about that before on our shows with the incessive amount of data mining that goes on in education to streamline to workforce needs. And that's not freedom either.
No, it's not. But it's packaged in such a way that it's just slides through. People don't, they always have these euphemisms and they sound innocuous, and it's actually never is. But the effect of this, it's not a benign thing. It's overwhelming, and nobody's going to take responsibility. I'm sure someone will say, "Oh, we had no idea. We're baffled." I'm sure that's going to happen when some sort of increase in a specific, like thyroid cancer or leukemia or whatever goes on. The doctors need to step in, and ultimately, I think by state, if you talk to the health department and the person who's running it, you would have a better chance of, that's what they're supposed to do. It's public health.
Right. Absolutely. And well, again, look at your energy companies, because they're looking to make bunches of money and at your expense, literally. We've seen it before. Well, okay, this energy company had a problem with this. Well, we're going to not turn to our stockholders. Lord forbid you should take their money. Oh, no, we'll go over here to Joe Blow and Joe Blow's family, and we'll ask them. We won't ask them. We'll tell them, we're raising your power bill to make up for this.
At some point, people need to say, I'm not doing it, and stand up, because otherwise this is going to steam. Mm-hmm. Now, unfortunately, we have a couple of seconds left. If you can tell people how to get your website, how to listen to your interviews, and how to read what you write.
Okay. Thank you, my dear. CommonCoreDiva.com is where you can find my articles. You can also find most of my podcasts there. You can also find some of the work that I've done on data centers at AmericanPolicy.org, I believe it is. You can also find out more information if you are interested from the Mooresville. Hang on just a second. Sorry, it's the No Data Center Mooresville NC.com. You can also find their email address on that website. You can look over their information. That is the grassroots effort group that has sprung up here. I really encourage other grassroots efforts to start, because we know that we have cities who have actually fought back and won against these centers, and we need to be talking to those communities as well.
That's a call to action, and people should take this to heart, because it affects everybody. It's not going to be something a one-off. It's going to be everybody generationally. So, Lynn, thank you so much for all the work you do. I think you're amazing, and people need to contribute to your effort because you're trying to save everybody.
Thank you, my dear.
And thank you, everybody, for living in the solution.
Revolutionary talk for revolutionary times. Liberty Talk FM.